Hello and welcome. I'm the Restless Kaiser.
And I'm Johnny B.
I'm Brush and Quill.
Oh, and I'm the Baron.
You are indeed. But together we are
Modeling
for Advantage. With a big fat stogie. It's perfect.
I got to stay in character. What can I say?
Do you love it when a plan comes together?
I do love when a plan comes together, but it rarely comes together. So.
Let's catch up with the boys in the chat then, and the girls, if there are any tonight. We have Alid here. That's me. Axe and Axe is going to catch us in the rerun. Are we all set for CrackCon, John? Alid asks.
I mean, we're going to be there at some point, so yeah, I guess.
CrackCon is myself and Jay Bizzle. Selwig is myself and James Workshop. Potentially Callum if he's feeling up to it. What are you saying,
When
Callum?
is it?
Sunday the 16th, I think.
They wouldn't have let me out.
They won't let you out.
I'll still be behind bars.
You'll still be behind bars.
Yeah.
Alad is painting more Germans, Flames of War with Stuart for O Group. Yeah, I'm going to have to try and play O Group. Maybe a Selwig or something.
Really should. I bet you love the bloody thing as soon as you've played it.
Not Jay says, howdy, folks. All right, some of your fellow podcasters. Saffron69. Gary, Saffron69, has just built up about 10 of those TT Combat French townhouses for me. They look fantastic. Now we've got to get them painted. But they're going to be great for a skirmish, like 5 to 10 figures. I'm thinking, Wiley games. I'm thinking that one in the dark, 0-200 hours. Maybe even bolt action firefight. But got to get them painted, right, John?
Yeah, you do, man. Good luck. Good luck.
Tony Holton, looking forward to the chat. As indeed my miniatures say, thanks. Are you painting, my friend? Matt Long, Subcommandante is here. Who's going to Selwig? Yeah, I'm going with James. Maybe with you also. We'll talk about that, Gary. Painting Panzer II from Rubicon. I have not seen that. Is what variants? Can you get the L, or is it only the early ones? I'd be interested to know. Something Abuse UK says hi. Not Jay says the Baron. Yep, they love you. Nick from Team Clueless Games going to catch it in the rerun. CrackCon Bob Edwards is a Plastic Crack podcast to podcast on a Monday night. It's like this, but better. They run a sort of Jacob's Join Gamers meet a few times a year. I think this is their third or fourth one. There's a lot of wargaming, historical wargaming YouTubers like to go down there, but it is a UK event in Derby or Derby Way, Saturday the 15th. Yep. Good morning from New Zealand. And Reese Crawford says, hey, y'all. So I guess he's from
from Arkansas.
Right.
Kansas.
A, B, C, and X. So not the L. And not Jay's Gaming Table says, how are those turkeys, Reese? I guess that's an in-joke that I'm not party to. All right. Hobby-wise, tonight I have everybody's favorite paint, Vallejo's Feldgrau. Is it the right color for Field Grey? I don't know, but it says it on the bottle, so it'll do for me. I'm making some machine gun teams for my Panzer Lair in 28mm. These are the, not Rubicon. Who is it, John? Help me.
Atlantic.
War Games
Atlantic.
Thank you. John, what about you?
Nice. Finishing off the Vospers.
Oh!
The Type 1s and Type 2s. For no game, really. Just,
for the Cruel Seas game we're going to play tomorrow, you mean? For the campaign?
Possibly. Yeah, maybe. What are you up to, Mr. Quill?
I've got a dragon.
Have you? What's that? Is that thingy and lasers dragon?
Yeah.
Dungeons and lasers.
That's the one. Yeah. I paint that for my mate. Every so often he chucks a dragon at me and goes, I need this for D&D. Can you paint it?
Oh, that's beautiful, man.
He's one of those miniature using D&D players. See, we play in the theater of the mind. So we
we play them in the mind for 99% of it, but when a boss comes up, he likes to have something impactful.
You got any hobby on the go, the Baron?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've you showed your field growl. I'm still recovering from Oktoberfest at my house, but I am currently painting 15 millimeter Land Raiders for
That's crazy.
Yes, it's wonderful. You could take a 6 millimeter STL file and you blow it up 250%, and then your printer just does all the work. And so we are having a giant. We have a convention in March called March to Victory here locally, and we are going to do a Battle of Ren's World from 40K. So we'll be doing it all in 15 millimeter using our bigger battles rules. So.
Is that published by Wiley Games, man?
Why, yes, it is.
I think it is.
We might hear some more about that today.
Yeah.
You might. Which ties into what I'm currently working on, which is when we did our Galactic Heroes, we did this small book that's called the Codex Galactica, which was how to basically take all your favorite sci-fi miniatures and basically stat them up for our game, which was pretty simple. So we've got Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who,
Babylon 5,
John Carter, all that kind of stuff. And we did a small thing in the Grimdark Future, but now I am actually going to do a whole big book that's just going to be called the Codex Galactica Grimdark Edition. It's going to be just all of the cover all the major factions and vehicles and troops and from a certain grimdark future. And I'm illustrating the whole thing to make it look like a illuminated manuscript from like the Middle Ages, because that whole Gothic thing. So it'll be like,
and that'll be an expansion for bigger battles.
It'll just be so you can, so many people just want the way we write the rules is it's miniature agnostic, but we want people to trade up or stat up their miniatures how they think that it should be. But there's tons of people who just want to jump in and start playing. So it's nice to have a book or a PDF or something they can just go right into it. So
off the peg.
Yeah, and they can just play away. So, for instance, Starfighters, which was our we had a ton of X-Wing miniatures that we got at the half-price store, and they were first edition, so nobody wanted second edition. So, we had like 50-something of them, and one of my friends over there in the UK, James, said, "Hey, do you think you could use your rules to play like space battles with?" And I went, "I think we can do that." And so wrote up those rules, play testing them. Our first big play test, we had 50 TIE fighters and X-Wings on the table with 10 players. It was done in like 2 hours. So we're like, yeah, I think we can do it and not break the system. So immediately people were like, well, can you use these for World War II? Can you use these for World War I? And there were a bunch of people who actually just statted up stuff for them. And so I'm going to make a card deck that's going to be all the World War I planes, and then a bunch of just like generic pilots. So you can just walk in with your, Wings of Glory miniatures and just go flip, 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 flip. Here we go. Here's my planes. Here's my pilots, and just start playing immediately. So
sweet.
That's what we're working on. But yeah.
Who are we?
Yeah.
Who are we? Tell us who you are and who are we?
We are Wiley Games. I am Jay Wiley, the CEO and Dark Lord of Wiley Games. And we've been around 10 years or so, just now catching on. But we started out as just coming up with these wonderful cowboy rules, Fistful of Lead, Reloaded.
Nice.
And then expanded with that. And we came out with some more scenarios. Mexican Revolution, everyone was immediately saying, well, the the mechanics work great. Why are we, we should expand into other periods. Well, the next obvious thing was we started messing around with horse and musket, which we came out with Fistful of Lead, horse and musket. And then we did a Kickstarter so that we could I knew I wanted to do a sci-fi version, because what is a good sci-fi story is nothing but a Western in space. So the first edition of Galactic Heroes came out 5 years ago, and you can use it for all of your whatever miniatures you've got laying around, whether it be Star Wars, Star Trek, 40K, and I have a penchant for the kind of retro Flash Gordon and all that sort of thing.
Nice.
So thus the cover looks like Flash Gordon. So we came out, this is actually the second edition, which came out last year. It's our hardback that has actually collected the rules, plus the vehicle rules, plus the Codex Galactica. And that's what we did. Also missing there was Starfighters, which is the space battle. So you can actually have a space battle and then have your ground combat and all that. So after that, we had, rather than basically every time we put out a new book, have to remake the wheel, we decided we're going to make a core set of rules that you can play with, and you can just build off of that for whatever genre. So we did the original Fistful of Lead core rules. And then what basically came out of that was, so now we just kind of do supplements for that. So that teaches you the basics, and then the rest is flavor. So we did Wasteland Warriors, which is our post-apocalyptic. I've got it more of a sort of, I come from a Gamma world, Thundar the Barbarian, Commandy, Last Boy on Earth, Planet of the Apes kind of world. So it's got a lot more weird stuff in it, like mutations and psionics and stuff like that, which you don't have to play with. You can just play as a straight like Mad Max world. We did Tales of Horror, which is our take on the Gothic horror, but you can also use it for modern. And then after years of playing, and mostly because my group that I play with is about 20 players, but on a Thursday night it's going to be anywhere from 6 to 8. So I'm putting on a miniature convention every Thursday at my house. So I had to sort of make rules that tailor to that. And when we wanted to do bigger battles with more miniatures, well, then we had to come out with bigger battles, which still keeps the same mechanics for everything, but that you're familiar with, but lets you play much larger scale battles with it.
This sounds genius. You've got many systems that are all the same but slightly different.
So last year, this was my magnum opus, which was the fantasy series. This is the hardback. You can't get the hardback anymore. You had to get this when we did the pre-order. This is a much beloved, sought after tome that we just gave away as part of one of our mini contests that we run. And so now if you want to get it, you have to buy the 3 volumes, which is this one's basically the combat system. This one's if you want to add magic. This one's if you want to add monsters and do some dungeon crawls. It has a way you can randomly generate dungeons as you go through.
Nice.
And then we just released Battlesuit Alpha, which is our mech battle game. So the glory of all of this is the fact that once you know the system, you can take parts from everything and put them all together. So our last convention, we did He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I don't know if you guys got to watch that over there, but it's a sort of sci-fantasy cartoon.
Yeah. I had a childhood. I know He-Man.
Yeah. So we have a whole Saturday. We did a whole Saturday morning things. We played G.I. Joe. We did He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So, but what that was is we took the sci-fi rules and we threw in some parts from the magic book, and we threw in some parts from the post-apocalyptic mutations thing, and put it all together, and it all works because it's all the same system and all that kind of thing. So there you go. That's what I've been doing. like 10 years. There we go. We're talking about.
Power! Sorry.
So,
No,
so
I
man,
get it.
waving the He-Man miniature. Right. Okay. That was like, oh, we've lost him.
No,
Scared him off watching the He-Man.
I forgot to grab my card so I can show you. But,
Right. Well,
the fun part was when we played the convention, anybody that wanted to turn in from Prince Adam to He-Man, they had to stand up and yell, "I have the power."
Yeah.
see,
And
that's
everyone
proper.
did it,
That is a
just played
proper
it.
mechanic. Yeah,
That
that's a proper
is-
mechanic.
The way to go.
Yeah.
Right. So, that was a big sort of run through. That's all of your products, right? So,
Oh
no.
But yes, those are all the books. But we got like something getting close to like 300 products on the website. So
Right.
that's with
Right.
all the little accoutrement and all our cards and stuff. So
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, what I liked about it. I mean, there's people have tried to create generic systems before. Does anybody know this?
oh yeah, I grew up on GURPS.
And this is horrid. This is utterly horrid. It is the generic universal role-playing system. And it's by Steve Jackson. He's like, this is going to be legit. Thinking, yeah, it does cover everything really badly. It is a hideously complicated system. If you go from playing D&D to that, you spend a week generating your character.
Sure.
He's got a terrible advancement system, whatever. Really, really complicated. And I've seen generic systems. There's two approaches to what's in generic systems. There's the GURPS type of generic system, which is about having millions of supplements, increasing complexity. Or there's the other end where the rules are just so vanilla. I could have written them on a napkin yesterday. It's like, oh yeah, you roll a dice and on a 6 you hit. Right? Okay, cool. And if you're a big monster, you roll a d8. Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah, this is great. I'm glad I paid money for a system like that. Now what I found, so I was a little bit skeptical. I mean, I love Todd, and he really raves about it. So I thought I'm going to give this a look, and some of the other guys down the club, Saffron 69, I played a little bit of it and said it was good. So okay, I'll give this some time. I'll give it a look. Now, there's two things I like about it. One is that it is very simple. It is the kind of system that's inherently familiar, right? You roll a dice and you hit on a 5 and you apply some modifiers. Yeah?
Yep.
And that I don't see why systems shouldn't be that, to be honest. I've found a lot of systems are more complicated than that and they just generate similar results. But the key thing that made it special, the key thing that made it modern, was that initiative system. The use of the card deck and that play. So for anyone that doesn't know, have you got some cards? Can you show us?
Yes, I will show you.
Because I think that's what lifts this game from being a game you could get anywhere to quite special and quite modern.
So I'll drone on here for just a moment, but then I'll get to it. So where it came out of was that I had gone to a local convention right out of college. So I started out as a D&D player. I had painted a lot of little Airfix 1/72 scale growing up, with the god-awful testers paints and all that, and made up my own rules to play with, and they were just simple like D6 stuff. Got my first metal miniatures when I was 12 in a catalog that came with paints, and there were D&D miniatures, and I already been playing D&D, and so I started making up simple rules for that, painted stuff. Again, I played role-playing games throughout most of my life, and then late high school, college, kind of got away from it because it was really hard to do that in art school because the hours are just grueling. So I graduated and started to look around for some gaming clubs, found a local convention, went to it. They had this huge cowboy town, a Wild West town, and they were playing. And after the game, I went by to ask the gentleman who was running it, hey, I'm interested in your rules. And he basically just told me to F off. And so I went and I turned around. There's a guy selling Dixon miniatures there, and it's the only time they were playing. The only ones that could you could buy Wild West miniatures from. So I bought everything he had, and I went home and started scratch building my town. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna write my own rules. So I was looking around, and I was like, well, cards would go really good with like a Wild West setting, that sort of thing. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay, well, what if you deal a card for each miniature you control, and that'll set the initiative system. And then we'll break ties by going through suits. So we'll use the poker suits where a spade goes for a heart, goes before a diamond. So that'll break ties. And it gives you this sort of mystery of, what's the other guy got? And when am I going to go compared to when he goes? Well, we could spice it up a little bit, and we'll make we'll make aces wild. So you can decide when, if you want to go earlier or go later based on when the other guy is. Oh, but wait a second. Let's have some special cards that if you activate using those cards, you'll get a little something extra. So we'll say that the Queen of Hearts lets you get a wound back, and the Queen of Spades will let you recover from any shock or pins that you have. And since it's a one-eyed jack, you're aiming with your one eye closed. That'll be a +1 on shooting. And the other jacks will be close combat. And if you go out of ammo, well, if you're out of ammo, then we'll use a 6 because it's a 6-shooter. And sevens are lucky. So lucky number 7 will be you get a reroll on that card. Well, that's going to be a lot for people to track. And we're like, well, what if I just wrote them on the card so that people can have them? Well, let's do some theme decks. So, if the King of Spades looks like a certain Dark Lord, maybe. And, the King of Diamonds looks like somebody who might be a captain in the Federation, that sort of thing. So that kind of is where it started from. And then we started playtesting it, and everybody seemed to love it. So we do a deck for every genre that we do. So for the fantasy ones, I did a more fantasy deck where I've got these fantasy looking dudes for your +1 to shoot and all that kind of stuff. And the Queen of Hearts looks like a beautiful elf maiden and that kind of thing. And the Horse and Musket one, I've got, Napoleonic looking people and Marburio and American Revolution and all that kind of stuff. Now, you don't have to play with ours. You can just play with a regular set of.
I was going to say, to be clear for anyone that doesn't know, these decks are just cosmetically themed.
Yes.
You can play with a regular set of cards.
Yeah. So but if you want to get started in our system, the core rules are $7 for a PDF, which you can download. Don't have to worry about shipping. And that's about a really expensive cup of coffee, at least over here it is. And then you use your own 99-cent deck of cards you can buy anywhere. So you can really get started with our system for $8 and call it a day. And then if you like it, of course you can.
I mean, last week that would have been about £6 in UK money, but now it's probably a million because our currency is just tanked.
I am ordering from the Perrys like crazy right now.
Because it's $2 a week.
Yep, they just got a huge order for me there, and Brigade Games, Brigade Models too. I'll load it up because our next one is going to be a Victorian sci-fi, and I'm going to include some from flying ships in there too. So I got to load up on my Brigade Model stuff. So I got to get mine.
Are those the kind of resin sky ships?
Oh yeah, the metal ones that they have. I found some resin ones I found some files I can print, but they're not as good. So.
Right. So the as I say, I think that's the mechanic in the game that really keeps it kind of fresh and modern feeling is that initiative approach, because people just got a flavor of it. But a lot of the really low cards are quite strong in terms of like the 2 allows you to re-roll a miss, and when you're only throwing 1 dice, that's quite a big deal.
It represents that your character has been waiting there the entire turn, figuring out what he was going to do. So the 2 is you roll 2 dice and pick the best, which is slightly different from a re-roll, because re-roll you're risking it. You might get a lousy die and you have to stick with it. Whereas the 2, you're rolling 2 and then picking the best, so you can actually see where it is and then kind of go from there. But yeah, the actual mechanics of it, that's the initiative system. The actual mechanics, the close combat is when you do activate a miniature, you get 2 actions for the most part. And that could be move, shoot, move, aim, and then shoot, that kind of thing. And so we kept it fairly basic. And then close combat's an opposed roll. We tried to keep most of the modifiers, not have a lot of modifiers, so you can keep it in your head. Miniature, when it's hit, I hate games where you hit somebody and then nothing happens. So there is no effect roll. So your miniature will either be get a shock point, which is just like they're freaked out, a wound, or they're just immediately put out of action. So even your best player, like we were talking before this started about the veteran status, even he can be knocked out with a lucky roll, like immediately. So and so when we did fantasy and when we did other things where we had armor, for me, armor doesn't make the shot go away, because again, I hate when I went to all the stuff and I hit the guy and nothing happened. So in my games, armor just reduces it. So you go from being knocked out of action to having a wound, or you get from having a wound to being just shock. So it can negate it very rarely, but for the most part, it doesn't make it go away. So, and then like you had pointed out, the shooting is either you hit on 5 at close range, you hit it long on 8 or above, and that basically translate. And we use a D10 for most things, but that translates to the old. I'm using a D6 and 4, 5, 6 is usually in most games hits.
You just got a bit more granularity by using.
I just because I like D10s because there's a little bit more variation in them and they just look cool. So.
Let's just catch up with the chat then. So Gary kindly doing a bit of marketing for you there, says, so if you want to buy Wiley Games product in the UK, Oshira Games do it, and they'll deliver, they have print copy and they have a lot of accessories, and you can buy PDFs from them as well. Board Game Brothers says hello. Tony Holton, waiting for my battle suit for my Mech Mini. So that's just come out, hasn't it? That battle suit.
Yeah, came out last week. So we had promised, we did it a pre-order. It was supposed to come out October 21st, and we surprised everybody and had it come out a month early. So nice.
What did you miss? We're talking to Jay Wiley about Wiley Games, Fistful of Lead in particular. Tony Holton says it's a wonderful sandbox to play in. I think that's definitely the truth. I like the fact that it's not a big investment to learn the system. I think the core rules are like 30 pages long, something.
Yeah, I mean,
and a lot of that is a list of traits for you to choose to differentiate between models. Right?
We can look. The rules that you need to, the quick reference sheet fits on 1 page.
Yeah.
So I pride myself on that. So yeah, the basic rules are probably 20 pages, and then everything else is fluff. So it's traits. It's what you decide to add to your characters to make them a little bit more special. Like, are they lucky? So they get to have a reroll. Are they steady? So they ignore shock when they're shooting. Are they? So it's real simple. Like you usually have a leader, a second, and then 3 regulars. And the leader has 3 traits, second has 2, and everybody else has 1. And it's all these books are basically just adding flavor to a basic thing because I found that people kind of want to be told what to do in certain ways. I mean, there's a reason why Games Workshop and stuff is so big, because they give you, here's the figures, here's how you should paint them, here's the stats, and I get it, but I'm more of a, but wait, what if I want to play werewolves versus Romans? Then how do I do that? Well, you could do that. Or I want to play samurais versus the undead. Well, you can do that without a big investment.
Yes. I mean, I think for me, the pick up and play aspect of a new game for me is important. I do like some pre-list armies and so forth.
Exactly.
But that's because I try a lot of games you know, and list building is actually, a lot of people love that, and the world building is a big part of this game. That kind of stuff, it's all pre-game work for me. It's like, I want to play this game 5 times, decide if I like it, and then I want to think about building lists.
Sure.
But I prefer to like rip open the clamshell, stick the model down, and let's go.
And we have some and a lot of our rule books do have a pre-statted. We have some short army lists, so you can just go at it right away. But there are things like we talked about earlier, World War II. That's a lot. That's a lot to take on to do all of that and every variation and everything. So, and that's just not what I want to get into. You could play a very nice generic game with it, and just play a small little battle with some of the lists that we have on there. But if you want to get into the specifics, it's a little bit, the onus is on you because you're the expert in what this is. And I don't want to, what I come up with may not be what your idea of it is. One of my friends had a great quote that when you want to play a war game, find your favorite movie and then find some rules based on that, because your idea of, I'm not a button counter, I'm not a rivet counter, any of that stuff. So I put in my rules. Like I actually say in the rule book, if you're a rules lawyer and all stuff, you will hate these rules. Yeah.
There aren't 20 pages on how you interact with cover in these rules.
Yeah, I
hard get cover -2 to hit. It's that kind of system, right?
Yeah, I get emails and sometimes on my podcast or on my video cast, we actually make fun of them. They'll actually send them in and we read them online and then laugh about it. But I'll get emails that'll be, I could tell they're sort of fishing for a little gaminess, a little rules lawyer, and it's like, well, what if I do this and this? And I'm like, oh, come on, man, really?
You missed the point.
You're missing the point. So that's just, I don't write for those guys, and if that costs me sales, then it's what it is. I make the game that I want to make, and hopefully you like that game too. Because you're never going to write the rules that everybody likes. It's not going to happen because everyone's got their, like I said, you've got that idea in your head of what World War II combat should be like. And only the guys that were there know what it really is. But you've got in your idea based on what you've read, what you've watched on TV, what you've seen at the movies. And that's your idea of how the game should be. And I can't write for you. Only you can put that in your head. So we've made it a very cinematic set of rules. You'll get those moments where the little nobody sticks the guy in the gut with his bayonet, and it's the hero who's killed everybody else so far, and then this little dude takes him out. And what's great is, and I think you've probably had it too, is there's like certain miniatures that even though they're just a little piece of painted lead, they've formed a whole legend around them. It's like you put that guy on the
because
table.
of the dice they rolled. Yeah, absolutely.
We did a pulp game where it was Terror Island, and it was like a mix of we had Dutch Oven, who's like our that's his name. He's like Doc Savage or whatever, and in his crew he had this little guy named Juan Jorge, and he was just a nobody. He was just one of our little regulars. He wasn't meant to be anything special. And throughout that game, he was just a flat-out killing machine. So now everyone is terrified of him, even though there's nothing really special about him. And it got to a point now in other games, I'll name other characters that and they're still afraid of him. So in our mech game that I had at our convention, one of the guys' call signs was Juan Jorge. So everybody knew. Or we had a next week is Wiley War Games weekend, which is a convention that I hold in my house for my birthday. And so that my wife asked me, was foolish enough one time to ask me what I wanted for my birthday. And I said, I want a convention in my house. So that's what we do. And last year, well, we got a lot of room. So we set up like 6 tables and I'll fight. And we had a group of bugbears, and they were all named Brian, Bob, Brad.
Begin with B, right?
Yeah, like B names. And Brian was a killing machine. He was tearing through war bands like nobody's business. He killed everything he saw. Finally, one guy took him out, and he became known as the Brian Slayer. So that guy to this day, whenever he's at a convention or whatever, his name's Chris, and it says Chris, and underneath it says the Brian Slayer. And so people, why do you have that? Well, let me tell you. And so it gives them a good little story, and there's a whole legend around. And that's what we all live for, those little moments. So I write rules for those moments, not the,
And you're talking about a system. So if we talk move on a little bit, talk a little bit about how the list building works in the game, because that actually is quite important, right?
What works?
It's not complicated, but how it works is a key part of balance and the enjoyment of the game. Is you've essentially got 5 guys.
Yes.
5 guys you can come up with names for, right? Even if it's just Jeff the Barbarian. You can come up with names for 5 guys. 5 guys, one of which has a couple of traits and the leader trait, and he is the officer, the NCO, the leader of the band or whatever. Another guy is like your specialist, and he can take a couple of traits.
He's the stalwart sergeant, or the guy who's packing the heavy machine gun, or the
and then your other 3 guys, 3 average guys, but they also take a unique trait, right?
Yes.
And if you want to do it simple, you give them all this. They all have the same trait.
In conventions, that's what I do. Like a convention setting, I'll usually give them all the same thing.
Give them all the same thing. Yeah.
Now there are variations within that, so you can swap out one of your regulars for what we call grunts or guns, or depending on what the flavor for the game is.
Yeah.
And they're a group of 3 guys that essentially act like one. So they can do their own thing, but they're not very good. And they
only ever take 1 shot between them.
They only take 1 hit and they're gone. So you as a player can decide, well, do I want more people to have more options, knowing that you've essentially taken a character and split it into 3 sort of thing.
Yeah.
There are some unit traits, so you can choose a unit trait, and you could play with just 4 specialists. So they're all like that second guy, but there's only 4 of them. Or you can play a horde where you get a leader, and then every one of those extra characters are those grunts that we talked about. So you could potentially have like a horde of troops that are all really crappy, led by a leader. So that could be your necromancer with zombies. That could be your queen radiated ant with her drones. That can be, however you want to portray it, the knight and his crappy retinue, Or you could, like I said, do fewer figures, but they're all better. What it all equals out to is there's a certain amount of traits, and I've either gone, they're this much or they're this much, sort of thing.
And there seems to be enough traits to provide an interesting. So it's not like there's one melee trait. You can have a melee trait that makes you hit better, a melee trait that makes you defend better, a melee trait that makes when you do hit you do more damage. But almost all of those traits seem to be it's +1 to 1 roll at some point.
Yes. Or a reroll. And everything's either an add or a subtract or a multiple dice kind of thing. So there doesn't seem. I didn't want to try to make the where you could work up the ultimate character. There's this. I didn't want to make it like that. I mean, there's going to be people that try to min-max stuff and try to find it, but we don't have a point system or anything. It's very simplified how we did it, and it's pretty easy to just put together a team pretty quickly. And we've got on our website when we have unit rosters for free on there. All the unit rosters are fillable, and they have pull-down menus, so you can literally just go to your little trait and go, and it auto-fills for you. You can drop in the picture, so you don't have to, you can whip out your units pretty quickly. And then we kept the same thing when we moved.
You heard it, ladies. You can whip out your units pretty quickly.
But we did the same thing when we decided to go for bigger battles. So it's the same thing. You're controlling. Hello, Warmut. Instead of controlling individual figures, you're controlling individual units, and then those units have 1 trait or 2 traits or 3 traits, and then you have an overall commander, and a hero who's like your, so you could, when we play our Star Wars games, you could have unit of rebels, and then 3 units of rebels, and then Han Solo's your hero, and then Leia's your leader, and then you can have like a heavy weapons team, and a speeder in there or something like that. Or if you're doing Civil War, you could have individual units and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So you drifted in. You talked a little bit about bigger battles there, and just to say, like, most of the games run off this system we just talked about,
yes,
which is the Fistful of Lead. But there is a system for using, which is called bigger battles, which is essentially the same, but you're having units have characteristics.
Yes,
and presumably they're a bit more resilient because they're units rather than single.
Yeah, so you'll have anywhere from, depending on what level you want to play at. So you could do 5-man squads or half sections or whatever you want to call them. You could have, for the most part, I usually make them, like when we do our Victorian sci-fi, they'll be 10 to 12 miniatures. You can make tribal bigger, so the people who have done Zulu Wars will give the Zulus a ton more. And then it's, instead of rolling a single dice, you're rolling dice for, you're rolling buckets of dice. You're rolling a miniature, you're rolling a die for each miniature that's in the unit, right, to hit. But you're still using 5s at close range, 8s at long range. Modifiers are still the same. If they're in cover, it's a -2 for heavy cover, -1 it's light cover. And then same way. And then you're rolling for to see what happens to them, whether they get shocked or whether they get eliminated. So instead of taking a wound, which in most of my games, the characters have 3 wounds for the most part. So you say I roll 2 shock and 3 wounds, well, you pull 3 guys off and you put 2 shock markers. Each shock marker is a guy who is a miniature who can't fire from that unit. So now I've got 5 guys left, but I got 2 shock. Well, now I'm only rolling 3 dice. Yeah. And you can remove that shock by either by different mechanisms. Either the leader can give up what he was going to normally do and tell that unit, hey, straight up there, get rid, and remove it. And in this case, like we had mentioned earlier, like the Queen of Hearts, for instance, in our regular rules would allow you to heal a wound. Well, this would let you bring back 1 or 2 miniatures. Oh, they weren't really hurt. They just maybe ducking and that sort of thing. Or a Queen of Spades gets rid of shock. So what we've done is we've kept all the cards and stuff familiar, but now you're playing like larger battles. And then vehicles and stuff are pretty much the same thing. They have a certain number of hits, just like a unit does. They have armor, and we kind of talked about how armor works, where it reduces hits and things like that, and kept it fairly simple. So even vehicles and stuff essentially are functioning like the units are. So you're not learning anything new every time you're learning the rules. So no matter which of our sets you're playing with, it's really just the flavor to play that genre or that period. So once you know one, you're gonna know them all pretty much.
And I'm guessing that. Sorry, I was going to say you talk about vehicles. I'm guessing that different weapons have different stats then, because obviously, I'm assuming, for instance, against a tank, a bazooka is going to do more, or cannon's going to do more against armor than a musket is.
Sure. So what we've done is the weapons have traits just like people. So you might give a Panzerfaust deadly, which means if it rolls a natural 10, it smokes them immediately, right? So there's deadly weapons like lightsabers are deadly in the sci-fi game, which means if you roll a natural 10, there is no wound roll, they're just gone. So you can make a Panzerfaust, something like that, or an 88 or another, a truly deadly weapon that just ignores everything and takes them out. But so like a machine gun will have obviously its own kind of range. Every weapon has its own range and everything. So a blaster is this range and a shotgun is this range. And so a machine gun will say it's 18 for short range and 36 for long range. And then you'll roll for bigger battles, you'll roll multiple dice for it. So that'll be like 3 dice or 4 dice, depending on how punishing the machine gun is. So it's like having 4 guys shooting, for instance, sort of thing. So it's you're just assigning how many dice it's throwing out there when it hits a unit. That way we're not messing with, templates and all that kind of stuff. So if my machine gun here, who rolls 3 dice, fires at this unit coming in, it's just rolling 3 dice. So, or whatever we've decided it's worth. In the Battlesuit Alpha, because it's the far future and everything, I've got certain weapons that are unlimited range, like the lasers. So they have a short range and then anything on the table. And in the case of the saber, it just keeps going. So whatever's behind it, it'll just keep going in a straight line. You hold out the tape, and anything along that line gets hit. Friend or foe, till it hits a hard target, or some of the heavier artillery, same way. Anything on the table you can see, you can hit.
So Jay, with regards to you mentioned that there's Fistful of Lead core rules and then there's supplements. Are those rules reproduced? So if I want to play, you mentioned if I want to play a particular say horse and musket, do I need to get Fistful of Lead and horse and musket?
No, I would just get horse and musket. Call it a day. There are some little things. Otherwise, so when we originally did horse and musket, it was like the second book that we did. We redid it as a second edition, and I had kind of taken everything that we've learned and moved it up. The only thing that's different about horse and musket that's different from the other rules, because there's not a lot of variation in the weaponry. I made for close combat, there's something called the idea of the better weapon. So, and it usually has to do with the reach. So if you have a better weapon than another player, you get a +1. 2 guys going at it with bayonets, they equal each other out. But a guy with a pike versus a guy with a bayonet, the pike's going to get the advantage. So he gets the +1. Or a sword versus someone with a bayonet. That's really the only thing that's different. And obviously I've got every book has scenarios in it that we've got, and they're all different. And so over the course of all the books, there's like 100-something scenarios, but you can obviously use one scenario in a different genre. So for instance, I wrote, there's a mini campaign for Tales of Horror called The Devil's Crown. And all those can be used for something else. I wrote a mini campaign for Galactic Heroes called Dark Day of the Destructo Ray. And there is a gentleman on Lead Adventure Forum who took those and is playing in medieval Japan. So the first scenario in the Dark Day of Destructo Ray is you crash land on a planet and there's parts of your ship and there's you're trying to find the Emperor's daughter out there. Well, what he did was he made it a Portuguese ship that had wrecked onto the beach.
Right.
The factions like samurai families, and one of them was Portuguese, and they're looking for the Daimo's daughter.
Yeah. So they just contextualize it.
Yeah, you can just transfer them to other things. But I've got some, each scenario can be played in order, and so you can, you play a series from the horse and musket. So you can use you could take the core rules and play with whatever you want. All the other ones are going to give you more flavor for it. So you don't have to buy long answer to what you just asked. You don't have to buy the core and the horse and musket. You can buy either or. But if you know you're going to play horse and musket, I would just say buy horse and musket.
Right.
It is standalone.
And the last one to just sort of clarify, the Starfighter thing.
Yeah.
Did I see like all BattleTech unit sheets in that? You have so many points and different systems. No. No,
I mean a fighter has hits, but
it just has hits.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just and it's sort of based just like the miniatures and all our Fistful of Lead systems. Your average guy has 3 hits. Mm-hmm. So what we have light, medium, and heavy fighters. So light takes 2, medium takes 3, and heavy takes 4. That's pretty much it. But again, you roll high enough, you get an out of action, and you just blow it out of the sky. So it doesn't matter how many they had. You can get a lucky hit and just take them out. So
yeah, okay. So yeah, the opportunity to play with those kind of miniature sets that we've all bought at conventions or gone, oh look, they're making some Terminator miniatures. Oh look, they're making some of these miniatures. Whatever your particular fancy is, Doctor Who, like you mentioned.
yes,
A kind of TV show. As long as it's gonna work on a sort of 3 to 10 versus 3 to 10 sort of scale, then it's gonna work.
Oh, definitely. Speaking of Doctor Who, we took some English Civil War miniatures from Bloody Miniatures, and we took some English Civil War miniatures, and we took some Cybermen, and we had a battle between the two of those.
Right.
And Doctor Who helping out the royalists there, because the Cybermen wanted the gold they'd captured from the King's taxes, of course, because
Oh yeah, they don't like gold, the Cybermen.
Yeah, you can't have gold with the Cybermen, so they had to capture the gold. They could go to the blacksmith. He would melt it down. They could make it into bullets, which they could then kill the Cybermen with. Otherwise, the Cybermen would just heal every time they got shot. So that was the scenario. So
right, okay, yeah, interesting.
So I'm just throwing out all the weird crap you can do with the rules. You can still play. You can play a straight up historic battle if you want, but it's literally it's limited by what you can come up with. So there you go.
Daleks.
Yeah, man, I'm loving the sound of this. The fact I buy lots of random shit, and I can now use it in the game.
Exactly.
Happy days.
Yeah, I have so many miniatures. I'm like, what am I ever going to do with that guy? I know exactly what I'm going to do with that guy.
I'm building a shopping list in my head.
Are you doing that now? Yeah, like studio miniatures. I'm going to buy all of that and have Chuck Norris beating the shit out of Machete. I'm going to do all of these things. I can't wait.
I just think you could do quite a fun Stargate game with SG-1 going through and.
Yeah.
That's
we did 5 figures.
One of my favorite games. I was in London, and one of my friends put on. He called it Fistful of Cocaine, but it was set in the South American jungle, and there was a plane getting ready to take off with a drug lord, and they had a CIA faction, a DEA faction, 2 of the other drug lord ones, and then running around in the jungle was a predator taking out people too. And so,
right, yeah.
Perfect. Perfection.
And those differences that you keep stressing is that they're not that big, are they? The differences between this guy's got a submachine gun, this guy's got a rifle, this guy's got this trait, this guy's got that trait. Those differences situationally can be quite significant.
Sure.
But they're not that big. It's really hard to make a bad army or make terrible choices, because the dice roll matters really more than the modifiers.
Sure. Yeah. And we tried not to make. What we tried to do was, like, when I was making all the different weapons, of course, a pistol's a pistol. I didn't like the difference between a Luger and a Colt is nominal for this. The difference between an MP40 and a Tommy gun. Yes, I know in real life they are completely different, how they handle what they do, all that kind of stuff. For our little guys on the table, there's no difference. No. So, but what I try to do is give each one of them kind of a plus and a minus. So a submachine gun can spray an area, so we use a little blast template, and you get to hit anything that's inside that little template. You get to roll for it. The guy's, he's spraying an area basically, but it's at a -1. So, and then if he rolls a 1, then he's out of ammo, that kind of thing. So it's you're doing a risk reward here. I could try to hit all of them, but the chances that now my guy's going to have to take a turn to reload are going to be higher. But, I want to try to hit as many guys as I can, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
the SMG is
they're watching this now going, oh my God, that's so horrible. There is so many.
But I like it when there's real choice. The SMG isn't better than the rifle. It's different.
Yeah.
Under some situations, it's better, and under others, it's worse.
Yeah, and the range is crappier. So
the
rifles could hit longer. But I didn't make a difference between, a German rifle and an American rifle. Yes, I know one is semi-automatic and one's a bolt action. For the purposes of our little guys on the table, we're just when you're rolling to shoot in my game, you're not shooting one bullet every time you roll the dice. You're firing a volley. So they're, and I know in America they're going pow, 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 bling. So we only worry if you roll a 1, which that's a 10% chance. It's fairly high.
This is funny when you mention that though, because actually a lot of war games struggle with that. The guaranteed is the point at which a war game has to decide how granular it wants to be.
Exactly.
In terms of the difference in small arms, like it actually does have a significantly higher rate of fire than all the other rifles are. They may be chambered differently, whatever, but they're going to function in a very similar way. This one definitely is different. Is it different enough to matter? That's
what the World War II. That's what the World War II supplement will have to decide, and not me. So I'm going to leave that to Todd.
Put that down to Todd.
Then when you don't like it, you can email him.
I was going to say, one of the age-old question though of how long is a turn in real life? Is that a few seconds or a few minutes?
And so because I've kept it vague, it's a cinematic. It's each turn is a scene, right?
Yeah.
And so is it 2 seconds? Is it 5 seconds? It's most of all my ranges are what look right on the table, not what they are. And are you one of those people that where 1 inch has to equal 50 yards and all that kind of stuff? Well, you've already thrown it out the window because depth is alwa's going to be wrong. Because
with the miniatures 1 inch tall, then
they're always way too deep than they should be, right, on the table. Especially if you're doing lines of stuff. So.
I want to see the Scooby-Doo supplement as well. Mini one.
Well, there was a game at our convention. There was a Tales of Horror game that was Scooby-Doo, the Winchesters from the TV show Supernatural, and I think the kids from Stranger Things, and they were going into this house to play. And that was a Wiley game. That was a
nice. Did the kids get push bikes?
What?
Did the kids have push bikes?
I was running my game. So the convention night, we had 8 tables. I was running my game. I was running Battlesuit Alpha. I had another guy running the Masters of the Universe. Another one was running a cowboy game. Another one was running the Star Wars game. So I didn't get to go over a chance to get to even see what was going on. I was focused on mine. So
I don't recall seeing a rule for bicycles. There was a rule for horses because I had a mounted colonel in one of them.
It'd be easy enough. You just decide, does a bicycle just give you increased movement, or does it give you something special? So
yeah, absolutely.
Depends if you got the playing card in the spoke.
Yeah.
You get a bonus if you have a stick on the other side. Jam it.
If you haven't caught on or you missed it earlier on, I can't remember where they had. We talked about it before the show when Todd was on Saturday. Todd and someone else. Who was the other guy? Jay?
That was with
working on the World War II stuff.
McMurray. His real name's Andrew, but everyone just calls him McMurray. So.
McMurray. That is actively in development.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of doing it in the side, and then like I said, my son's been slowly converting all the 40K stuff over to us, so we can do a supplement for that, and it's that's where. We've got so many people that have played a system that are just tired of it or don't like it. So we've got so many people that have left Legion and are now playing with Galactic Heroes because
they're not tired of your system. They're tired of the
they're tired of Legion and they've come over. And then there's a bunch of people that we're trying to win over that are from like the 40K universe to come over and play with us too. But there's always going to be the people that these are the rules for these miniatures, and this is what I'm going to play, and or the people who are playing tournaments. I mean, obviously, these are tournament rules, but those are those kind of players. I'm not judging you either way. It's just I don't write for that, but there are people who just, for instance, with the Star Wars thing with Legion. There's companies that are literally putting out new miniatures the day after the last Star Wars show came out on Disney Plus. When Mandalorian was coming out, there were companies that were putting out miniatures that matched the show the day after that show aired. And Legion still hasn't put those figures out because they just, they've got to go and they've got to play balance them for the different factions because, and they have to find rules stuff. And so we were literally making cards for them, statting up those miniatures and printing them the next day. And so our last game, it was a big bounty hunter game. We've got all these bounty hunters that are 3D printed miniatures. We've got all these, they call them remnant troopers. They're these stormtroopers that are kind of like, I'm not a stormtrooper anymore. I'm like a mercenary now and all this kind of stuff. And we had these huge games without the Legion guys, because we can do it because we're nimble enough. We can just play with whatever you got,
Yeah. The last thing that I'd certainly observed, not just through like McMurray and Todd and so forth, is this system brought in the round, it attracts a lot of loyalty, right? It's not a well-known system, but a lot of the people that play it.
It is now because of your show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you get another sale as a result of this show, you let me know, buddy.
No, we have a small but very loyal fan base.
Yeah.
So. But again, it's there's 3 or 4 different kind of war gamers. There's the ones that I am into tournament play, and I don't care about what my miniatures look like or whatever. It's just I'm playing the game, and then there's the ones who are very into a specific period. They find their one rule set, and that's what they're going to play.
That's what they do.
Yeah. I admire them. I can't do that. I watch a show or I read a book, and I'm like, I'm onto that the next day.
Yeah. I have a friend who's still playing 15 mil Napoleonics, like 30 years on. That's what he does.
With Empire rules or something like that.
Yeah.
It's killing me. And then there's the ones that just I like painting, and hey, I just bought this guy the other day, and I want to play with him, and that's. And I want the rules that'll handle anything that comes up, and that's we're finding we got that little niche, and that's what we're trying to hit. So yeah, I mean, I go all over playing, and it's nice to see people posting that they were at different conventions. I saw up at maybe it was Partisan. There was one that was
in Newark,
a group that played one of the Wild West games, and they actually won an award for best participation game or something. So,
all right.
So we are spreading. We have a huge group of people in Perth, Australia that play. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Just there, but it's pretty cool. And we've sent to everywhere but Antarctica. So we are global as far as who's playing, whether it's a big group or not. And all we can do is just keep hacking away. Like I said, we've been when I put the first rules out in 2001. We did a Kickstarter 10 years ago for the original Reloaded, and we're up to almost 20 titles now. So if you include all the supplements and everything and all the mini campaigns, and still plugging away, the next one will be the Victorian Sci-Fi, which is a special place for me, and that one's going to be a supplement that will cover both Galactic Heroes because it's sci-fi.
Victorian Sci-Fi pre-order here, right here.
Yeah, War of the Worlds and all that.
Yeah, it'll cover the ship-to-ship battles, and then it'll have all of vehicle rules for your cantankerous machines. But it'll more importantly have all the genre or all the locales, so you can go dinosaur hunting on Venus or fighting Martians on Mars or that kind of thing. So,
nice.
Jay.
Sounds cool.
All right. We're coming close to time now. In fact, we're 5 minutes over, but where we got to, I put some green on some Panzer. I put another base coat on these Flames of War guns as well. John, what did you get up to?
The Vospers are done, sir.
Sweet. For Krulls, these, the motor torpedo bots.
The motor torpedo bots.
I've smoked most of this and drank most of this, so
happy days. Callum, did you finish your dragon?
No, I finished the green. Where's the camera? How many times have I used this laptop? I still can't find the camera.
It doesn't matter, man. Look at that.
I finished the green and I started on the old manicure there for it.
Nice.
That is a nice model.
It's a metallic one.
You could use that in a Wiley game thing.
You could.
Fantasy do that.
I'm just glad there'll be rules I can use my steam tanker built in. So, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Mr. Wiley Games, remind people where they can buy your products.
At Wiley, that's WILEY -games.com. And that's our website for our store. And then we're also on Facebook. We have our store has one there. We're on Instagram, all your social media. So.
And in the UK, if they want print copy, they go to
Oshiro, OSHIRO, Model Terrain is where you can buy all the stuff from us. James has put in a order yesterday, so we'll be shipping some new stuff for him. He should be getting the Battlesuit Alpha here pretty soon. He's in Japan right now, so it may take a minute for him to get back and send those out.
All right. So Not Jay reckons he's working on a World War II naval supplement. Given how interested in naval matters you are, I don't know. Is that the truth in that? While the game saved me from hex accounting, brain busting rule sets. Yes. Amazing show. Thanks. All the love for Jay. Thanks, guys. And John's girlfriend has just arrived. Are you on TikTok? She would like to know.
That's our next thing. I've got a 21 and a 23-year-old that are slowly taking over the social media side, and we will be doing little TikTok things. Our video. Oh, we're also on YouTube. Check out all of our videos on there. We've got some how-to. We've got some. We break down specific ones. Tonight will be another episode of BSing with the Baron and Steve. So tonight at 7 Central Time, me and Steve will be doing a recap of our convention last week, talking about what's coming up. So if you're not tired of me on here, you can catch us in 3 hours on there. So,
and if you want to see how simple the game is, you can obviously watch it on Jay's channel there. We did play a couple of games. We streamed them. We played a Nazis versus Zombies, and then we played a SAS versus Nazis game. And that was from not knowing the rules. Within an hour of playing that game, I had a pretty good idea of what I was doing.
Yeah, that's been the best thing about conventions is usually I can teach the players in two turns, and then I go walk away and do other stuff.
Yeah,
it's just epic.
We will see anybody that's a CrackCon on the 15th, and hopefully James Workshop is going to drive us down to Selwig on the Sunday, the 16th. We'll have a video out on Friday, and that's about it for now. Right?
Sweet.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you for watching. Bye-bye.
That's awesome. Bye.